Welcome to the Discover podcast, where we view faith as a discovery journey with Jesus to help you become the person God created you to be. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Discover podcast. We're so glad that you are here. I'm joined today by my friend and fellow pastor, Mark Weigt, who is the lead pastor and founding pastor of the Ridge Community Church in the Greenfield area. Mark, we're so glad that you're joining us today.
Man, it is really great to be with you, my friend.
Yeah. And so let's tell everybody how we started getting to know each other. Do you remember one of the first interactions that you and I had?
I don't. Remind me.
Yeah. So it was really memorable. It was a really, really meaningful moment, obviously. So during COVID, we were, as Brook churches, meeting together like every other week, especially in those first few months, because everybody was trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we navigate this? And so we were just in that rhythm of every other week joining us. You had a really strong relationship with Jonathan at Southbrook at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of tasked with leading those calls, getting everybody together. So Jonathan said, hey, Mark from the Ridge was just curious to join one of our calls. Are you okay with that? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. We all could use whatever help we can get. And Mark probably has something even to share with us about how he's navigating. So you jumped on a call with us. And you being the connected guy that you are, knew quite a few guys on our call already.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of my first memories of being in a meeting and engaging with you.
Reason why I said I wasn't sure, because I kind of knew you before I officially knew you. So I never told you this story. So when you guys were doing a capital campaign over the last couple of years, I can't remember when. Well, Kyle's
Mhm.
there, who is in our church, who's on our staff at one time, all that stuff. He sends me, he's doing the video work for you guys, I believe. And Kyle's just a super guy. Okay. And so he sends me, he goes, hey, have you met Brian? Brian is doing great work. I want you to watch this clip. And I watched that. I thought, man, this is really good stuff. Just the vision casting and the video work, all that stuff, and what you guys were doing. I thought, man, this is fantastic stuff. And then Jonathan would always brag on you and how you're leading the Brook Network churches and all that stuff. So I felt like I knew you before I officially knew you.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's Kyle's a great guy and he does amazing work. And yeah, I think I met Kyle maybe back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
It was before COVID. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did something with a fireplace, a video that he did before COVID with a fireplace, and then we've had other projects with him, and yeah, it's just fun to know that he's still with you guys and still serving.
He leads worship with us still, all that stuff.
Yeah,
he's great.
That's really cool. So that's how we first connected, and then I remember during COVID, I don't know how and why I found out that you guys were doing kind of a vision recast coming out of COVID, and I was like, hey, can I get some time with you to just hear what you're doing and why you're doing it, how you're doing it? And so we had a conversation. And again, I remember it was, I don't know what night of the week it was, but I was just sitting on my couch, like listening to you talk about why and how and what. And I was like, wow, Mark is a really good leader who thinks through things well, is a good vision caster. And so from there, I feel like our paths have crossed multiple times to the point now we're on this kind of leadership team, which we'll talk about in a minute, of a collective work that we're trying to do. So that just sets the stage for how you and I know each other. But maybe you could give people a little background on you and kind of just some of your pastoral journey and kind of where you're at, how you got there, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I didn't set out to become a pastor. I actually was in the business world first, got an international finance and marketing degree, oddly enough, at the University of Miami down in Florida. By the way, ranked number 2 team in the country right now, just for those of you
Go Canes.
who are interested. And so I was working for a Fortune 100 company, became a Christian during that time. God had just rocked my world so much that I was like, I couldn't stop thinking about, why don't more people want to discover the love and grace of Jesus, So it just kept going through my mind. Fast forward a little bit, my wife and I get married. During that time, she wasn't a Christian when we were dating, so we both weren't. She becomes a Christian. We get married. She has the same thing. And so we left to get a master's degree. And then we were kind of on an island because we were like, okay, well, where do we go? God was kind to us and just aligned us on some staffs with some great churches that were reaching people far from God. We were so blessed. Served in a church in Kentucky that went from 2,000 to 9,000 in like 5 years. It was just explosive growth.
What's the name of
And
that
then
church?
Southland Christian Church.
Yeah.
in Lexington, Kentucky. Mike Burrow was the lead pastor at the time. Just fantastic. Then we went out to California and we're serving at a church out there. And then we just got really moved to come back here to plant a church. It was kind of a long story. And so we just celebrated our 19th birthday
As a
and
church.
we planted the ridge. Yep. It just planted 19 years ago.
Really?
And here we are.
That's wild. I don't know why I had the year 15 in my head. Maybe that's because that's when you and I first started connecting. Maybe you were around
Hmm.
15 years in,
Yep. Was
and
around
time
15.
has just stopped for me, but yet it really keeps going. So 19 years, that's impressive. So that's almost 2 decades in
Yeah.
one place as the founding pastor. That's pretty wild.
Well, and it's crazy, and it's crazy cool to just, be a part of to go like, because when you plant a church, Rick Warren always used to say, you go there with the mindset of you will never leave.
Mm.
And we did. And we're so fortunate to be at the spot right now.
Did you really think when you were planting the ridge that like, yes, I'll be here for 20 years easy?
I did. I didn't think of I never thought about leaving. There was a hiccup. There was an opportunity that dropped in our lap that we weren't looking at, but just through a bunch of different stuff, okay, that happened. That was the only time, and I talked to our board knows all about this, okay? The church doesn't, but the board does, but we just really prayed through it, and God kept us here, and we're grateful that He did, man. I mean, it was, but I've never been like, I need to go somewhere else. I love it here.
Yeah. So you
Very
went from
fortunate.
Florida to Kentucky to California to Wisconsin.
No,
And are
dude,
you
I still hate winters.
are you grew up in Wisconsin, right?
I grew up in Oshkosh
Yeah.
actually, but when I went to Miami and was in the corporate world, stayed down in Florida, I had been out of the state for 14 years. And I never thought we would be back in this area at all.
Yeah.
And s
So
and where we are, I'd never really been to that area where we planted, so I didn't know much about it.
right. So growing up in Oshkosh, that's kinda like a totally different context than Milwaukee. Let me frame for people again who follow along and listen to this. We are in a second season of this podcast, which we have titled "On the Move," and what we're specifically talking about is how we sense God's leading in our lives so that we could participate with Him. As a
Mhm.
church, we're teaching through the Book of Acts right now, and what you
Mm.
see in the Book of Acts is God on the move in significant ways through the Holy Spirit. And so I want to get to a point where we talk about the work that you and I are sharing in together with some
Mhm.
other pastors and churches. But I would also be curious to hear how you discerned moving from California to Wisconsin to plant a church in the greater Milwaukee area.
Yeah, this is kind of a crazy story. I love this on the move theme, because and the book of Acts is my favorite book in the Bible. People are like, "You have favorites?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have favorites." Okay, it's the book of Acts easily. So when we were in Kentucky serving on staff there, loved it, but I always felt called to plant a church for some reason. I don't know why, I always did. And we started to explore options there, and we did it for years, and every door slammed in our face. And we got to this point where I still remember praying this, "Okay, God, I guess this was my will, not your will, and so I am handing this back over to you, never to visit it again." And so, some things happen. We're out in California, and I'm happy there. Don and I are loving it. We just adopted our the twin boys. We loved California, what God was doing. The church was growing, all that stuff. And then we got approached by a church planting organization to come here. And I still remember I was like, I don't want to go back to Wisconsin, man. I love the weather out here. We love the people out here, all that stuff. But they said, would you just at least, when you come back to see your family, would you just at least tour the area with us? And I remember going, "That's fine. Okay, whatever you want, that's fine. Not gonna change us at all." So when we came here and we toured the area, it wasn't like there was like written in the sky and all that stuff. I remember just going like, "Okay, all right." It wasn't until this is fascinating. It wasn't until we began to do some research on Southeast Wisconsin,
Mhm.
and it's such a unique area of any part of the country, okay? First part is that the church growth side of things in this area is some of the slowest in the country. You look around the Midwest and you see explosive growth. You see huge churches all over the place. Kentucky, I mean, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, all that stuff. A church of 5,000, 7,000. But you cross the border into Wisconsin, especially southeast Wisconsin, the exact opposite. In fact, it reflects the New England area, the
Totally.
Boston, all that stuff. Okay. That's one thing that grabbed our attention. Two, the percentage of people that are attending church has declined so much over the last 25 years. It was amazing. And then you add that into number three in poverty, number one most segregated area in the country. You throw some of that, and it was known as the graveyard of church planting at that time. It was the number one, this area, the number one failure rate in church plants. So for us, all those things that you think wouldn't grab our attention grabbed our attention, and we were like, okay,
Let's
let's
go.
go there.
Yeah.
And so we packed it up and moved.
Yeah, that's fascinating that you would be like, "Yeah, let's go to the hardest part of the country, one of the harder parts of the country to plant a church." And as you were describing all that, I would say, yeah, it mirrors New England. I'm a guy who grew up in New Hampshire and know,
Hmm.
like,
So
there's
you know.
not yeah, there's not very too many large churches in my parents are from, they live here now, but I grew up in Southwest New Hampshire, and probably one of the largest churches in this community was the church that I was raised in, and when I was there, it was maybe 200 people. Now it maybe is like 5, 6, at most 700 people, and
Which
that's
is a huge church over there.
huge,
Mhm.
especially in rural New Hampshire too, small town New Hampshire. So, yeah,
We
to
always say this, Brian. We say this when you get a church beyond 1,000 in this area, you're in rare air.
yeah, I mean, because there really aren't too many.
No, I'll talk. It's funny. I'll talk to people who have moved to this area, lead pastors, and they'll been here a couple years, and I'll say, so, and they'll be like from Illinois or some from Midwestern or Southern state. So, what do you think? And they're all like, oh man, is it hard here? It's
Yeah,
rough. I said, yep. Welcome to Southeast
yeah.
Wisconsin, man. Welcome to it.
Yeah, so it's funny though because I would say it's also an area with incredible opportunity, right? And I
Hmm.
know that you believe the same. That's partially why.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So tell me what you see in terms of opportunity that's in this community, in this area, in this city, even beyond just Milwaukee, Southeast Wisconsin in general, for the sake of the kingdom.
I think, and I'm seeing it more and more, even this last 3 to 4 years. Okay, I really think, and pastors will throw these things out because we think we're pastors, we're supposed to say it. But I wouldn't have said this 7, 8 years ago. I think there is a real hunger for God being stirred up in this area right now. I know we're hearing it in other parts of the country as well, but I think we're really seeing this now. I think there is an opportunity to deal with some of what I call the very damning things that this area is known for. That I think, we talk about poverty and segregation and all that stuff. I'm sensing a real move of collaboration
Hmm.
that they want to start talking and dealing with those things. They're open to it where 10 years ago, there wasn't.
Yeah.
When we moved here, there definitely wasn't.
Yeah.
It was one of the toughest things that we experienced when we were here. But I'm seeing something very different than that now. I don't know. I'm very excited about the next 5 to 7 years. I really am.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And I would say that so I came in 2016, and Jonathan Mazurian from Southbrook was the first pastor to reach out to me. And he reached out to me like even before we moved here. I don't know if he messaged me on Facebook. I mean, such a Jonathan thing to reach out to somebody
That's his
before.
strategy. That's
Yeah,
his strategy.
I believe.
He told me, I asked him one time because he's so great. He's
Mhm.
so great with networking and connecting.
Yeah, he's
I
the
said,
best.
just tell me your strategy. It's Facebook strategy. There it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And so he reached out to me on Facebook, welcomed me to the area before we even moved. There was a note from him waiting in my church inbox, like a handwritten physical note from
Oh,
him
yeah.
within that first month, took me out to lunch. And so, and I'm just trying to get the lay of the land. And I know Meadowbrook is a part of this Brook Church thing. There's Elmbrook, Eastbrook, Northbrook, Southbrook, all these brooks. And I was like, so you guys probably get together on a regular basis and, at least a couple times a year. And he's like, yeah, not really. We're kind of all doing our own thing for whatever. And I was like, really? And he kind of then backtracked and he said, yeah, maybe even 10 years prior. Not that it was like blatantly antagonistic towards each other, but there just never was a sense of collaboration. That really surprised me. But I felt like within the first year of being here, that wasn't necessarily the case. Like within the first year of being here, reaching out and connecting with Mike Belanti from Northbrook and Matt Erickson from Eastbrook. And there was just a sense of like people like, hey, What's stopping us from at least being in a relationship with each other? And then from there, it just feels like there's been more and more questions being asked of like, yeah, why wouldn't we look to partner and collaborate with each other? So tell me a little bit how you've seen that shift move from where you were when you started here 20 years ago.
Man, I tell you, so when we planted in '06, so we planted in the fall, got here in January. So one of the things as a church planter that's common to do is you reach out to just pastors in the area, introduce yourself, just try to have some sort of connection. Okay. Like, hey, we're here, glad to be in the community with you. How can we, come along? All that stuff. Okay. Just you do. We got zero phone calls or emails in response. It was awful. So we felt like on such an island. And then on top of that, there was an organization, a Christian organization. And before we even launched, they caught wind of what we were doing and they denounced us publicly. So it was like, hey, great to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Welcome
Christian
to the
community
neighborhood.
here is really warm.
Yeah.
So and we were doing stuff, man. I had Christians. I got my life threatened one time. I mean, it was just a disaster. Okay, so we launched, and I just remember feeling really lonely and thinking about all this. And I made a commitment to God. I made two commitments to God that was still to this day are the two commitments that drive us. It was God, if you give us influence of any kind, you just know we're going to be aggressive and take risks to reach lost people. I don't care what anyone else says. We're going to go after that because we believe heaven and hell are real and we're going after it. The second one was if you bless us with influence, we're going to leverage that influence to bless and serve and bring together churches. And it was, I don't know, we were about 6 months in. And I always remember this Pastor Chip from Spring Creek.
Mm,
He reached out. He finally responded. Someone responded back and he goes, hey, young man, you come up to see me. I'm going to buy you lunch and I'm going to take care of you.
mm,
And that was such a pivotal meeting for me. Every time I see Chip, now he's retired. Every time I see him, I just go, you have no idea. And God was kind to give us influence. And we just, for the next 10 years, we tried to bring, churches together and all that stuff. And it was so hard, Brian. Oh my gosh. It was brutal.
yeah.
But slowly but surely, some walls started to be chipped away. And then there was some people that you would meet, other pastors. They were like, "Hey, you have this heart too. I want that." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And we started to see some movement. And here was our philosophy behind it, Brian. There was two things that drove it. One, we said a fractured family produces fractured results. And if we're a family and it's just fractured like that, well, no wonder we're getting the results that we are. So we just said, "Man, we got to do something about it." And then the other thing is we looked at the segregation issue and we said, well, no wonder it's so segregated. Why it's so racially segregated is because it's so religiously segregated. And so God's not going to go beyond what his people are willing to go. And so if we heal that part, we think there'll be a ripple effect of the other. And we think we're seeing that. So there's a long answer, but yeah, it's really neat to see what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think, pretty early on, again, I felt the temperature of the city was like, I think this community is ripe for collaboration. I think there are lots of pastors who are eager for it. They want it. They would love to see it happen. I think one of the challenges that makes it hard is everybody's so busy with their own, managing their own thing. Just shifting that mindset of like, how do I move from like my silo, my own little thing to this collaborative mindset, like that shift in and of itself is a big hurdle to overcome.
Well, I mean, we are responsible for the church that God has entrusted us to. Okay, so there is that side of it. The tension's real, but I think we have to be willing to step outside of that and go, hey, we're also going to be responsible for how did we leave the spiritual temperature in this area and the church at large, because that's going to drive that.
Mhm.
So I think we got to take a step past that and wrestle in that tension for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening right now. Something you've been working on for a long time, something I think I would say I've entered into the last 2 to 3 years. So you've been working trying to develop a collaborative effort, a collaborative collective of churches to really reach our wider community, the city of Milwaukee and the southeastern region of Wisconsin. So just talk about where that came from for you and kind of what you're sensing as to where we are now and what's working?
Yeah, like I said, goes back to the story I just told of just isolation and segregation among churches and that kind of the competitive spirit. So for the first 10 years, we got together and about year 10 in that journey, kind of before you just when you were coming on board, we just saw some really great things as far as some chemistry and some relationships develop with a bunch of churches. I think there was 20 plus churches. And what was cool is that there was some real like, hey man, we really like each other and we really trust each other. And so we started to see some things with that. But the problem is that we were trying to get together to collaborate, but we weren't really collaborating. We would do a little bit here or there, but it was like, okay, are we making a dent in the lostness of this area? I was fortunate enough to get connected with a group of city leaders, city pastors, who and I was able to be in a cohort with them for 2 years, which was life changing for me. During that time, I realized that our locations, where the Ridge 2 locations are, it's a bridge between the city and the suburb. I had never thought about that before, but it wasn't until being in that cohort, developing that. So then we took it another level and we started to bring these two groups of people together. And some really cool stuff started to happen, but still no, we weren't knocking out the lostness in our community. So we invited you and some other pastors, and we started to partner with an organization called Christ Together that really helps develop not only a I think a framework, a structure, but also helps us create a vision, not their vision, but what is God doing here helps us to craft that and then provide the structure necessary to move forward. So right now we're in the process of building that and we're doing some small collaborative things. And I think I'm really this is the most excited
Hmm.
I have been about what could be
Yeah.
as churches.
Yeah, my overall sense is that there's real possibility with this. So when I was in Atlanta, I was a youth pastor, and I probably would have been in a community in the greater Atlanta area that's comparable to Wauwatosa in terms of it feels like a small town in a bigger city. It's a community called
Hmm.
Woody, and there was Mount Vernon Road, which is kind of like the main drag that ran through this community. And you had the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, the Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church, our non denominational church across this drag. And I noticed again, like you have all these churches who aren't really in relationship together, but kind of sort of knew each other. And so we just started working a process of like, hey, what does it look like to be in relationship? And it was so this would have been shortly out of seminary and just asking the question, what does it look like for churches to work together and to offer something collaboratively and collectively that nobody could do on their own? And so we did during my time there, we did probably 3 of these all youth group nights where we had all the churches together, which the first few were just great success. There was probably 300-400 kids at the first one, and just it was an amazing momentum move of like, wow, like when people come together and work together, like what can result is pretty incredible. So ever since that time, like I've just carried that with me as like, what does it look like to do that in other places? Is that even possible? And so then moving here, that was my sense again, moving here that God could be preparing the groundwork for something like this in the future. And I think we're starting to see some of that with I don't know how many churches you would say we have kind of orbiting around this collective that's slowly forming, but it feels like there's quite a few.
I would say my guess would be, and I just talked to a pastor the other day who's not in but has been wanting to be in,
Hmm.
who just moved to the area, and he actually went through the Christ Together stuff. He's got 4 other churches
Mm.
that want so, and so we're having a meeting, all that stuff. I would guess I bet you we have 25 churches.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about 25 churches that are a part of that whole thing.
Yeah, I would say you have 25 who are probably like, "Yes, we wanna do this." And then you probably have almost another 15 or so, that's
I
just
would agree.
yes, that are like, "Ooh, they're interested, like, what is this?" And at some level are waiting to see, will this actually formalize? Will this actually develop?
Mhm.
Somehow create will there be infrastructure for this to be sustainable?
I would agree.
Yeah, and
I would agree with that.
I think Christ Together has been a a wildly helpful organization to give us vision, language, and a little bit of a pathway to say yes. And they would say too that they've seen. So, what are some of the other cities that they talk about in terms of where this takes root?
Yeah, they talk about Atlanta, Buffalo, uh, where in Texas? Is it
Austin, is it
Dallas?
Austin?
Austin,
Yep.
Austin. Yep, that's right, Austin.
And in the Charlotte
Um,
area, is that where
and the
Will's from?
Charlotte area.
Yep. Yep.
hmm
And they
Yeah,
say,
I think Buffalo, I guess, has 70 churches, and they were pretty much similar story to ours, which is just fantastic.
yeah. And I think it's amazing to see like some of their reports are like, yes, 70 churches in Buffalo. I forget what they were saying in terms of how many churches in Austin. But one of the things they have said is that it just takes time. It just takes, it's a slow, steady, week in, week out, month in, month out, just continuing to put this in front of people, keep inviting people to it. And you've been at it for a long time, right? So
hmm
what keeps you still saying we should give our attention, our time, our resource to this? Because it would be really easy for you to be like, okay, I've tried and tried and tried, and it's just
hmm
not happening. So I'm just going to focus on the ridge and let the rest of the city take care of itself.
I'm not gonna lie. There have been times where I've been like, "This is is this going anywhere?" And it's frustrating and all that stuff. I always tell my executive pastor, I'll go like, "Man, these lead pastors are strange." It's funny. She always nods her head. She goes, "Oh, I
Right.
know." She's looking at me. I'm
Right.
like, "All right,
I
all right,
work
all
with
right."
one of them.
Yeah, but yeah, it's true. Uh, I I just keep going back to heaven and hell are real, and the church that I lead is, I mean, God's gonna, we're gonna do what we can do to put ourselves in position to hopefully to God or entrust us with more, and we're hopefully, but it's God's decision. But man, how much more can we do together if we truly? I mean, that's Jesus' one prayer in John 17, man, and he says, that we may be one as He is one. The Father, Son, Holy Spirit are one, and more people will know who He is because of that. And so, if we could be an answer to his prayer, maybe he'll send revival to this area because of that. Maybe I don't know what the results will be, but here's what I do know. They're going to be better than if I just focus on what I am or you just focus on where you are.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be better.
Yeah.
It's going to be better.
Yeah. So, can you give any tangible stories of like what you're seeing? Like, if we're talking about this idea of God on the move, like God has already been on the move in your life and bringing you here, starting the ridge, doing this work to try and bring churches together. What are some of like the tangible stories that you have seen that give evidence to God being at work in this community through this effort of churches collaborating together?
Well, there's some things. So not too long ago, we did some joint worship services with You Flourish and Evolve. And let me tell you something, man, they exploded. I still think those are the two most powerful services I've ever been at. And our people thought the same thing. And so did, I mean, it was just fantastic. And I think just there was just walls breaking down in that stuff and in those experiences. More recently, we've, as you know, Brian, because you've been a key part in the whole thing, is we've been trying to build the collaborative muscle.
Hmm.
And at first that's hard because it's got to be built. And so we've tried some collaborative efforts, like we did this back to school event, and just to invite churches to collaborate together, big and small. And it's been kind of neat to see just the first run of that and to gain some trust. And hey, what does this look like? And I think there's been some really good results with that. We have another one with, man, we want all these churches to do baptisms together in November. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens there. As I'm talking to pastors, like, hey, we got our November baptisms going. Hey, we got our, and it's like, all right, all right. I mean, out in California, they did baptize California. I heard the stat the other day. I don't know if you saw this or not.
Mm-mm.
It is the single largest baptism in a day in American history they had out there. 7,700 people
That's amazing.
were baptized. Why can't we do that
Right.
here?
Right. Yeah.
Why can't we so we're starting to see these little collaborative efforts that we're trying to put together to gain confidence with the leaders to go like, man, we can do more together and we can reach more people. So those are just two small ones, Brian, as you know, because you've been a real big driver of that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to connect for our people, connect a few dots for just a moment because we have a school right across the street, Jefferson Elementary School. We do an annual harvest fest with them, which is just like kind of beginning of the school year in our parking lot and their playground. We do games, we have bounce houses, we have our little coffee shop that we provide drinks for them. So we've been doing this for years. And then with this challenge from like, hey, what does it look like for us as a wider collective of churches to support our local schools? What's something that you can do? So the idea was like, hey, let's start with some low hanging fruit, something that instead of saying we've all got to like come together and do this one event, what if we empower people to locally serve the school that's right down the street or right next door? So we did a snacks drive. I sat with the principal from the elementary school. His name's Steve Kern. I said, Steve, can you come over to my office? I'll go to your office wherever you want to meet. He came over to my office and I just said, what's one thing that we can do to bless you guys as you start the school year? And he said, snacks. We're constantly
Mm.
giving out snacks to kids and we could use more snacks. So if you guys could do a snack drive for us, that would be huge. So all through September, we collected snacks. And so I'm connecting the dots for our church to say, what you were doing in providing snacks for the school across the street wasn't just a Meadowbrook thing, but it was churches all across the Milwaukee area saying, hey, we are doing the same. We are going to bless whatever school is in our community. And there's been all kinds of things. There's been teacher events. There's been people providing, household goods for just to support people back to school year. There's been backpacks. There's all kinds of stuff. And even though offering snacks is a really simple thing to do, one, it meets the request of a community member, a leader of a school, and it's a part of this wider vision of what does it look like to participate in shared work together. And so I think the thing that we've done is say, hey, instead of making this overwhelming, let's just build, I think you said it, build the collaborative muscle. And
Mhm.
what is it? How do we change our mindset from just my one church doing this one thing versus we're all in this together, we're all in the same thing, same team, and we're working towards a common kingdom goal of reaching our communities.
Which you think about this, Brian, you said that so well. It's weird for me, and once again, I know I'm idealistic and, I planted a church, okay, so it's a little bit different in my setting. We get that. But it's, like, weird to have to explain that to people.
Mm,
Like, "Why would we want to?" It's like, "You know we're family, don't you?
right.
And, we're all gonna be in heaven together." I mean, why don't we get used to it now? We have a saying, by us where and we say this with our staff all the time and all that stuff. We say, "Hey, when they win, we win because we are they."
Yeah.
And we say that constantly, constantly. So, hey, let me ask you, Brian. So you've seen this school thing event, and you've kind of been a part behind the scenes of this whole collaborative thing. I mean, what are you feeling and seeing with all this?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did, gosh, back in 22, 21, 20, it might have been the January of 21, we did like a big pulpit swap with all the Brook churches. And that was a lot of fun for me. So there's 13 churches.
I remember that, by the way.
Yeah, and not everybody has Brook in their name of their church, but there's just different churches that had kind of connected with us. And so we did this pulpit swap for the month, which was a lot of fun. It was challenging. It was winter. COVID was still a thing. And so we had our challenges with some people getting sick or whether or not cooperating. But it was just really cool to see all the pastors be like, yeah, I'll go to whoever's church and go just be present and pastor the church that day and preach. And so that was a lot of fun to see that happen and to see people in our community be like, oh, oh yeah, we're a part of something bigger. And I think people are slowly catching that to say like, yes, we're a part of something bigger. We're a part of a bigger family. And I know for me personally, when we made a move from Atlanta to here, well, I loved Atlanta. I loved living in Atlanta. We were a small church. We were a small fish in a huge pond. Like Atlanta is the land of the mega church, right? So
It's huge.
say
Yeah, there's no
you,
doubt.
you say like it's hard to imagine churches being over 1,000 people in Milwaukee. You could say it's hard to imagine churches being under 1,000 people in Atlanta. And we were one of those churches. And so you just feel sometimes dwarfed by these bigger churches. And I remember saying to God when we were on this move here, I was like, I want to be a part of something bigger than just my local church because I want to experience and have vision for wider kingdom ministry that gives me a bigger vision for what you, God, are all about with your wider kingdom family. And so, I'm just really grateful to be able to be here, to be partnering with people like you and other pastors in our collective, because I think it gives us vision for like, yes, I love that when they win, we win because we are they. That is such a great, did I say that right, by the way?
Yeah, I always have to check myself too, so
Right,
don't worry
right.
about it. Yes, you
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
And so I think our people, as they continue to hear stories of this and understand, I'm anticipating they'll be like, this is great. Like, why wouldn't we?
I'm telling you, Brian,
Like,
they will.
yeah.
You will. I get more response from people when I share stories of that than pretty much anything. You will. I remember this time I got a call from a pastor in the area, and he was trying to get into his first building. He planted around the same time we did, and so we had developed a friendship. He's a wonderful dude, and he says, and we formed this team. We call it the building broker and builder team. All right, of people that and they were all mobilized to help churches. So he was working with the broker and had the builder, and they had this building opportunity. They were moving forward. He gets to closing, and he's short money for the close,
Hmm.
and it's the deal's going to fall through. So he calls me. He's like, "Mark, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." And so I'm like, "Yeah, man, I don't know what you're going to do." It's kind of like that whole thing. And then I was like, "Man, why can't we help?" And so I called, the head of our finance team. And I'm like, "Hey, do we have the money to do this?" And he's like, "Well, it'll be a stretch, but let's try it."
Hmm.
And so we did, and I called him back and I said, "Hey, we'll cover the rest." Okay, so I share that story with our church, and you could hear I had a picture of the keys, as a part of a message, and they were like, they loved it.
Yeah.
No one was like, "Why are we spending money
Right.
on?" They were like, "That's awesome." And it was a church close to us.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a church somewhere else. And it was just like, I'm telling you, Brian, they'll love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it. I believe it. That's a really cool story too. So as we wind down, right, we're talking about this idea of God being on the move. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you join us on this podcast is so people can hear and know kind of behind the scenes some of the work that I'm doing, some of the work that we're doing to try and create a collaborative effort in our city to reach the city and to really lock arms with people. And so I'm just grateful for your leadership in it. I'm confident that we will see great things happen in the years to come. And so as we kind of wind down, I wonder if there's anything you would want to say to kind of close out the time, whether there's another story that you feel like captures the work we're doing, or if there's just something that's been stirring in your heart or something you've been thinking about recently to say, as we step into 2026, I know it's a couple months away, but it will also be here really quick, and what you're hoping for in the years to come with this work.
Well, one of the reasons why I'm so hopeful about it is because we now have a leadership team, which you are on and a part of. And so we have a collaborative effort at the highest level for this thing. And it's made up of city, suburb churches, very diverse group of leaders. And I tell you, it's just exciting to just see those different contexts. I don't know if that's a word or not, but those different people from different places within Southeast Wisconsin to bring that to the table. And we're just so much better because of it. And so as we move into 2026, to see the leadership of this itself reflect what we want to see God do. Man, I tell you what, Brian, I love having you on board. You've just been a real godsend. To see that God was stirring your heart back then, and to see this, man, God was already moving and ordering steps. So, with the theme God on the move, I know you want me to share stories about what I'm hopeful for. Just this conversation and just kind of some of the dots it's connecting. And I hope for people who are listening to go like, man, God just knows. And
Hmm.
so when we move, it's usually because something larger is being put together and
Yeah.
we don't see it right away, but it all of a sudden makes sense a couple years down the road. And it's like God just does so much bigger than what our little step sometimes entails. And it's just really cool to be a part of. And so, man, if God's tugging at you, wherever you are and whatever you're thinking of, move because something larger is happening that God wants you to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I'm confident that as a church, we're going to hear more stories of this collective work of what God's doing, and I'm just super excited and honored to be a part of it. And yeah, just grateful for our friendship and your leadership and all of it.
Right back at you, my friend. Right back at you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Discover podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.